Good afternoon. Good morning. I guess this is right now. It'll probably be afternoon tomorrow when I post this. But welcome to the More with Less podcast. Today I'm joined by Wake Forest women's tennis coach Jeff Wyshner. Jeff, welcome to the podcast. Hope you're doing well. How's everything going?
Good, Les. Thanks for having me on. Happy to get the opportunity to talk about the team and the program and what we're trying to get ready for and at this point. And just hopeful that everyone's staying safe and being healthy out there, and looking forward to all of us being able to be back to our normal activities a bit, hopefully for the fall.
What has the last 2 months been like for you personally and professionally? It's been weird for all of us, I know.
Well, it's interesting that you grabbed me this morning. My son's 8th grade graduation is this afternoon, so. And that's virtual, and then a car procession. So we're, and being a typical teenager, he's like, oh, I don't need to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm like, oh, we'll take part in what's going on. So we've been working through the school thing and sort of just starting to wrap that up personally. Professionally, you work and you plan all year for March 15th to May 20th. And we were excited. We thought we would be playing deeper into May than we ever had before. I think, we finished the last ranking that was out, had us at 16th. And I think we were likely, based on the schedule we had coming up, to move up in that. And typically, if you're top 16, you're playing into at least the third round and hopefully longer of the NCAA tournament. And, the last couple of years, we had, reached second round. So third round was going to be a new weekend for us to get to. And we had a doubles team. We were very proud of the fact we had Lisa Omaru and MC Meredith finish the year All-American. And so it would have been neat to be getting ready for their NCAA tournament run as well. I think they lost a tiebreaker, third set tiebreaker 15-13 to the number one team in the country back in October. So we certainly would have gone to that tournament hoping they could have made a deep run and maybe even matched. I saw a lot of tweets this week about Petros and Gojo and their national championship team and individual run a couple years ago now, and so we were eager to see what we could do in those in that vein ourselves this May. So it was obviously disappointing for that not to happen.
Your team had played. I believe 5 or 8 teams in a row and put up some good fights there in conference play. And you probably feel like you were going to get a lot out of that competition, right?
Yeah, one of our biggest events, our single biggest focus non-conference wise going into the year was the Blue Gray Invitational. And we went down there and we beat at the time, the number 5 team in the country. Princeton had come off a really good national indoor, and we won that match. It was our first top 5 win as a program in about 20 years. They had beaten number 4 Florida. It was somewhere around 2000, 2001. So, back when B. Bielik and Janet Bergman were, dominating the college tennis scene, and, B won the national individual championship back in 2001. That was a real accomplishment for us. And then we moved right into the ACC schedule and, had a very tough early schedule. We played 3 top 10 teams in the first 2 weekends of that. And unfortunately, we didn't come out with any wins, but in particular, we were the only team in the country to win the doubles point against North Carolina the whole year, who had won the national indoor championship and finished the year number 1. And then we took 2 first sets and had 4 other sets that were, 4-all, all finished 6-4 or 7-5 in those first sets. So we had given, the number 1 team in the country a better run than we have in the past. So it was an exciting time. Fortunately for us, the top part of our team's coming back. So we return our top 4 players. We definitely lost, 3 great seniors who had phenomenal careers and really, saw us through, from barely making the NCAA tournament, and that was the goal to where we ended up this year. But our positioning for next year is even better.
Physically, when I say physically, like actually, where were you positionally in the world when you found out that basically all sports were canceled, and how did that message get conveyed to your team, and how did they process that?
Well, it was interesting. The Wednesday, I think it was March 11th, that things kind of happened that night with the NBA canceling or suspending their season. We were earlier in that day, I was told we were a hot topic of conversation within the administration at the university, not just the athletic department, because we were the first student trip that was scheduled from the middle of that week on. We were at the tennis center at 8 a.m. on Thursday morning, getting bags packed to go to the Charlotte airport to fly to play Boston College on Friday.
Wow.
And Terry Mitchell, the Anthony travel rep that works in the athletic department, John Curry, we were able to make what turned out to be a great decision. We literally rebooked our Thursday morning flights for Friday morning and said, if we need to go, we'll fly up Friday morning, go play Friday afternoon, and then come back probably Saturday morning. By 2 o'clock, the ACC basketball tournament hadn't kicked off at noon. And that was really the reason we did it. We thought, there's going to be decisions by the ACC by 12 o'clock here. And if they stop that, they're not going to let us play tennis on Friday night. So that's really what happened. We would have literally been landing at the airport at the time that the ACC said that we couldn't play, and we would have been in Logan Airport, which, it was good to have stayed out of a major metropolitan area.
Yeah.
And then interestingly, we had things sort of settled. We had a team meeting scheduled for Friday morning because it was spring break, but we were one of the few teams that were on campus and training and competing the Sunday before the March 8th. We had played UNC. And then I was literally driving home and heard on the radio that the NCAA had canceled the spring championships. I ended up in a grocery store parking lot for about an hour because the team was together, and they were at the house where 3 of our seniors were living together. I ended up on the phone talking to all of them and sort of saying, okay, this means it's time for you all to figure out how to go home. So we did end up meeting on Friday morning, but that was sort of the tough time. I could tell, especially our seniors were really upset at that point because it became very clear that Thursday afternoon when the NCAA made that announcement that our season was over.
At the time, it seemed probably sudden to everybody, right? But now, as we look back now, it seemed like, in retrospect, it seems like the obvious decision. But in the moment, it probably seemed drastic, right?
Absolutely. We were like, why are you making a decision about mid-May, in mid-March? And why not just announce, the ACC had done what we thought was a good thing, which just said, we're going to suspend things for 2 weeks and then make another decision. And I know there was a lot of consternation about how the NCAA made that decision without a whole lot of consultation with conference offices and with the country. And, I think looking back, they must have had some very good medical advice in that room and told them, hey, this is where we're headed. Made a pretty good call at that point. And it certainly helped us because if we had been suspended for 2 weeks, we would have been in a situation where it would have started to get harder for some of our players to get home. We do have, 2 out of our 10 players on the team were from overseas, and getting them packed up and out of the dorms and home was a little more complicated because by the following week, the number of flights leaving the country was being drastically reduced.
And how did your players, especially your seniors, your seniors, how have they taken all this? Because they had their careers just unceremoniously come to a screeching halt.
Yeah, it's certainly been a difficult experience for them. We've been in a unique position, and one of the things we've prided ourselves on is we've probably been a little bit better for 6 or 7 years in a row now. That this year was supposed to be better than last year. And that, as the seniors working towards that and helping us achieve that, I think they were excited to see it play out. We had one senior who had already applied to grad school, and she'll be going into a sport management program at SMU, which is her hometown. The other two, it worked out well. The extra year of eligibility is given the other two. We were in a position where it didn't quite make sense for us. We had all of our spots filled for next year, and I was very concerned about the impact on incoming freshmen and current freshmen and sophomores if we increase the roster drastically to have our seniors come back. They were able to find great opportunities. Lexi Franco, who I would also point out just did a great job as the student athlete athletic council president this past year. She's going to JMU, where one of her former teammates, Kimmy Guerin, who was our #1 player a few years back, is the assistant coach. So she's headed there to play next year. And then MC Meredith is going into Tulane. And so they'll both get to do grad programs, paid for grad programs as a result of this. So, I think we've made the best out of the situation. And then for us within the team, with the current players, and especially with the incoming freshmen, we've sort of, we turned the page. We tried to turn the page that day. We typically do that. We have sort of a somewhat awkward tradition of whenever the season ends, we know we're not going to see everybody for 3.5 months. So that we usually have a meeting for just the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. And we did that this year. We had a final meeting as a group with the 1920 team and talked about where we were and what we had done, and how we had a good journey, because we did start in January compared to some of the spring sports. But then, half an hour later, we met with the returners and said, hey, the 2021 campaign starts now. And hopefully they've taken that to heart. And I know they've had a lot of virtual schoolwork, but they've also hopefully been getting their workouts in and trying to get to the courts if they're open in their area and start getting ready for next year.
That meeting with the returners, you were actually able to do that in person as opposed to virtual, because that was before they departed, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And, and then our players were also just lucky because having been on campus, they were able to move all their stuff out. So, one of the most difficult things for college campuses have been how to figure out how to get people's stuff out of their rooms. They don't want everybody to flood back, and some people are a plane flight away. And, Wake did I thought it was really neat. They, to move some of the people out of their rooms, they had a company come in to pack stuff and either store it or ship it. But one of the interesting, you start to realize the nuances of decision making that has to go on. They were live video streaming with the people whose room it was, because most of these rooms on campus are doubles. The people wouldn't know whose stuff was whose. So they had to literally be like, does this go in your box or does this go in your roommate's box? And then figure out, which was going where or whatnot.
Wow.
So, it's been amazing, the efforts, you start with Jane Caldwell and her staff academically within the athletic department. But the university's efforts to be as good as they could to all the students, and to all the faculty and staff, they've gone out of their way to be supportive of us and create the best possible situation, while protecting the university's interests as well. So, we have the players and we have a lot of gratitude for the way we've been treated at this point.
You mentioned Jane Caldwell, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. If I remember correctly, I think I saw a perfect 1,000 APR mark for your team. Am I right?
Yes, I think it was several years in a row that we've had that perfect APR. And, I got asked to put a quote out on social media at one point, and I was like, I wish I could take more credit for it, but really, between Jane and really our players take their studies very seriously. One of the things I learned over time coaching this team was that I actually when we're on the road, I have to give them a time when I need them to stop studying and go to bed. Because there were a couple times where somebody was like, I've got a big thing next week, and we'd find out they were up till 2 or 3 in the morning, and then trying to play at 11 o'clock the next morning. Like, no, we're here. There'll be time on Saturday and Sunday to get that work done. So, a lot of credit to the players for what a great job they do academically. All 3 of our seniors graduated at 8 semesters, which is something we think is important. College athletics in different situations. I think fall sports are often in a different situation too, and people will come in at different times. But for a spring sport like ours, we're very proud of the fact that our student athletes graduate in 8 semesters.
Another big accomplishment, if I recall correctly, that took place this spring was you notched your 300th career victory. What does that mean for you and for the Wake Forest program for you to be a part of it and grab that victory?
Yeah, well, that one's kind of tricky because there were 5 years where I coached men's and women's tennis at Fairfield University in Connecticut. So I kind of get those little, landmarks, or I'm not thinking of the right word, but those little accolades a little more often than I necessarily deserve. Because about 2 years ago, I got my 300th overall win, and this was my 300th women's win. So.
Okay.
I have 54 wins as a men's Division I head coach. So every year or two, I kind of hit one. I go up another notch, and I probably don't deserve to get that credit as often. But the one that we were actually this one we didn't publicize as much, but we talked about within the group a little bit. This year, I don't know if this is a good thing to be proud of, but our first 3 years. My associate head coach and I, we won 12 matches. That's not 12 matches each year. We won 12 matches in 3 years. And so we were something like 12 and 57 after 3 years at Wake. So this year we reached 500. And that was something we had been looking at for quite a while, and we got to 500, and I think the last 2 weekends actually put us like one match under 500 for our career. So we'll have to get around to it next year.
I don't remember seeing a tweet about that one. You're right.
No, but it's the last 6 years or so we've gone close to 20 and 8 or 9 or something like that each year. But it takes a long time to make up for those first 3 years. But that was that was kind of something we've always looked at as a way of saying, hey, the strides the program has made during our time here.
It takes time to build a foundation, as evidenced by Dave Clausen's first 2 years of 3 and 9. I don't even know yet if he's over 500 in football at this point. He probably is. We won't do the math just to make sure. So
he's doing such a great job. It doesn't matter what his record is. It's like he gets it. It seems every day on Twitter he gets a W with his recruiting class at the moment.
There's one pending right now, as a matter of fact. That's why you saw me look at my phone a second ago. I'm expecting another. I'm expecting the 9th football commit for the month of May any moment. So
there we go.
Yeah, he's
that
on the road.
Offensive line is looking awfully good.
Yeah, the Beef Boys are looking good for the future. That's for sure. Speaking of other sports, I saw a video of you tweeted where you slam dunked a pair of tennis balls to help celebrate the hiring of Coach Steve Forbes. Tell me about that video and be honest, how high is that goal?
Well, and if you give me another, one of the big things that's happened here is that I'm turning 50 in December. So
congratulations.
This whole crisis has given me a little time to think. And to work on. I've exercised more in the last 2 months than I have in 10 years. So I've become my son's practice partner. He's a 14-year-old tennis player, and so that's been a lot of fun as well to have that opportunity with him. As John Curry's known to say, there's a lot you can get done in a dry season that you can't get done in a wet season. So. Before I answer your question, I am going to share with people that I'm about 6'3", and I was able to dunk a basketball back in the day. So it was a little harsh. Initially I put the hoop at 9 feet and I was able to do it, but for the video, I was like, that's a little bit of a stretch. So it was probably only about 8, 9, 8, 10 when I did it. So, but there was a moment in time in my life where I was able to throw it down, and do remember that. That's one of those things. It's like hitting a home run or dunking a basketball. It's just one of those feelings that, I guess nowadays everybody has that feeling because they lower the hoop. But back in my day, there weren't any lowered hoops.
Well, congratulations on dunking on the close to 9-foot goal.
Yeah.
Is it just me, or is there a lot of excitement right now amongst the Wake? Have you captured the excitement of the new basketball coach hired? It seems like there's a lot of fan excitement right now. Does that trickle through to the other programs, and can you even feel it since nobody's on campus right now?
Without a doubt. I think he's brings a lot of energy. He brings energy. Earlier this morning we had a weekly head coaches call with John and you can just tell the intensity and energy level he's bringing to what he's doing. And I can just imagine it's got to be very frustrating for him to be trying to do this, given the restraints that are on him right now, and not being able to go quite do this the way he wants, and let alone being in those times that I'm sure he has to be in the building, not really getting to be there and get going with his student athletes. That's recruiting is obviously an important part of our job, and it's really it is one of the great things is to get to meet 11th, 12th graders and get to know them and find out and see how well they might fit with your program, and if you're a great destination for them. But the thing we look forward to the most is being with our teams. And I think, for me, and I think for many coaches, it's that day-to-day being with your team. So, the competitions are great, and we target those, and we work towards being great on those days. But we may only play 25 to 30 days out of the year, and whereas we're working with players for a couple hundred. So, I'm sure he's eager to be in a room or be in the gym in particular and get a basketball out there and a whistle and be yelling at people to make sure they get that foot on the sideline to cut off baseline or something like that. So that's all the stuff we love to do, and we're all missing right now.
A couple more things, I'll wrap up. Thank you so much for your time. I did notice that one of the programs for which you used to be a coach, Akron, recently eliminated their women's tennis program. Thoughts about that? And I'm assuming that was coronavirus related. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's actually, I've coached at 4 schools, and 2 of them don't have programs any longer. And both were really important places for me. Akron was interesting. That summer, my son was born in February, and as I mentioned before, I was coaching men's and women's. And my wife and I quickly decided that trying to do both teams, which was great while we were just married but without kids, the schedule aspects of that, I insisted on having both practices separate every day, and we had double the matches, every weekend. And we quickly decided that wasn't the long-term family plan for us. And so I started looking in summer of 2006. And I remember being really disappointed. I thought I had especially having done men and women, I thought I applied for but didn't get an interview with the Georgetown job, which, given the varsity blues, is maybe a good thing. And then I was also very disappointed I didn't get a phone call. I didn't get an in-person interview at West Virginia at the time. And Akron gave me an opportunity, and I met with them. And it turned out that it was, of those 3 choices, it was by far the best place for me to land. It was, in terms of building a winning team, that conference was phenomenal. It's got a great group of schools, and it was a hidden gem. The campus is actually beautiful. When you go to visit it, it's it's not known as much, and we definitely had to look a little wider in our search for recruits there. But we had a lot more success, and we're competing for conference championships 4 years later. So it was obviously disappointing to see that happen. I believe I saw something. It's been a tough last. I know a few people still up there, and certainly know the former student athletes that went there with me. And it's been a tough few years for the school. I think their enrollment's down something like 24% over the last few years. They actually I think they eliminated something like 5 or 6 academic departments.
Wow.
They were academic schools. They had like a system of 11 different schools, and they're going to try to more specialize. I don't know which ones I'm thinking. They probably kept like their nursing school and their engineering school, which was phenomenal, and got rid of some of their other schools. So it's been a tough time for that institution. And so, this was just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for within the athletic department in terms of maintaining the number of sports. So, but Akron was certainly great to me, and wouldn't be at Wake without the experience I had there. It was sad to see ECU got rid of tennis this week. App State got rid of men's tennis as well as some other sports. And there's been more across the whole country. I mean, I can't empathize enough with those student athletes and those coaches. It's a tough time. Hopefully ADs and the athletic departments and schools will find a way to keep that to an absolute minimum.
We'll wrap up on a much more positive note. Your team was ranked nationally. You say you improve a little every year. Sell me. Are you going to improve again next year? And how excited are you about the team you have coming back? And what do you think you can accomplish?
If you had asked me another question, I was going to stop you and say, we've got to talk about next year. So I'm glad I'm glad that's the question. I couldn't be more excited about where we're headed next year. We return what was our top 4 players from this year's team. And interestingly, we only will have 1 senior. And so the next couple years are hopefully on track to continue to step forward. This past year, we had 2 players come in. Carolyn Campana came in as a sophomore transfer to play at our number 1 spot. She must have missed All-American by like a couple hundredths of a point. She was 19th in the country in the last published ranking, and
wow.
Must have been 21st or 22nd, and she needed to have finished top 20. And her sister Anna, they came in and had such a huge impact on our team. Playing within our top 4 spots. Eliza Omru comes back for her senior year, and Sabi Nialani, Anya Brillin, and our advanced North Carolina girl, Peyton Pesavento, come back, and Maddie Lynch from Ohio. So we return a core of 7, including our top 4. And then we have 3 freshmen coming in that, we really expect will have an impact right away. They're very talented. I think we started to see in the last couple of years the increased success we've had, allowing us to recruit even better and better. And I'm really excited about not just their talent level, but sort of the work ethic that I think this year's team is going to very naturally have. It's a good group in terms of that. So we're excited to get back, and I do think we're in position. The really difficult part is and I'm sure baseball and men's tennis and the golf teams are seeing the same thing. We were looking at 7 number 1 players in the conference that would have graduated. And there's another team that was top 5 in the country. They would have graduated their number 2 and 3. There was another team that would have graduated their number 2. And almost all of those players that were top players on a team are coming back. Yeah. The only number 1 that isn't coming back is transferring to Syracuse and gonna go play there instead for a 5th year. So the competition level, I think, for all spring sports is going to be very high next year. The teams, because you're essentially now creating a situation where you've got 5 years worth of players competing. So that's one of the things we're going to talk to our group about from the very beginning and say, wow, that was one thing we didn't get to talk about in that March meeting where we laid the groundwork for next year, because we didn't know that there was going to be a year of eligibility yet. But the gauntlet is going to be even tougher next year. And the ACC is usually, I think, one point this spring we had 10 teams in the top 25, and teams are only going to be stronger next year. So we're definitely going to have to get after it and be ready to go.
The flip side to that is it's going to be some really entertaining tennis to watch in the spring.
It is, and certainly, obviously, the people who probably will watch, many of the people who will choose to watch this are the people who are already supporters of tennis. And one of the things that we've talked about during this time, looking ahead to next year, is trying to increase our fan base and get more people out. So, any Wake fans, local people that are watching this, please find a way to get to one or two of our matches. A few more people at one of our events makes a difference. If you add a couple more people to an event that's got a few thousand people at it, that's not necessarily a game changer, but a few more people at our events makes a difference, and the players appreciate it. And our matches are free, so one of the things I've heard from people is they think that they'd have to pay for tickets to come see a tennis match. And the format for college tennis is really amazing with the doubles and singles and the 7-point format. So it is an exciting format to follow. We're going to try to come up. We have a few new ideas for marketing for next spring, but hopefully we'll get a few more people out and see us play.
Sounds good. And like I said, the competition level, the level of play, especially when you get to conference play, should be just completely outstanding. Any final thoughts for Deacon Nation?
Well, first and foremost, I think we've been encouraged to be leaders within the community, and I'll tell everybody, please get out there and wear a mask. No shirt, no shoes, no service. I always remember at the beach. So, and I've never complained about having to put a shirt and shoes on to go to the restaurant at the beach. So, I would please, let's help each other and help us get back to being able to have students on campus and college sports. And, the more of us that wear a mask, the more likely there is that there's a football season. And I know we're all eager for that to happen. And I need some sports to watch on TV.
Absolutely.
So that's a part we can all play. So I would mention that. And as I already did, a thank you to the university and everybody working hard to not only take care of us, but look out for us and the student athletes and making us all as safe as possible in our return. And always, how do you end an interview at Wake? You always say, "Go Deeks."
Go Deeks. Thank you so much, Coach. Best of luck in the coming weeks and getting your team back together, healthy and on campus, ready to go for this coming season. I know your folks are ready for a banner year.
Thank you, Les.